Hi, I'm Tim with the Iowa Register, and I'm here with Donita Garner. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
I appreciate you letting me be here.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to reach out. This is a busy month for you.
Very busy.
So thank you for
Absolutely.
making time
It's been great.
because it's Child Abuse Prevention Month and Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Yes.
Both fall in April. And so you're in the midst of talking to whom? Cities and counties?
Cities, counties. We go to every city in Allen County, and we go to most cities in the other counties, and then we do every county commission, and we ask them to join us in declaring April Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month and declaring April Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And so we want to make sure we're joining as communities together to, declare that and be aware of that.
Explain what you find so valuable in that. Why do you guys do this? I mean, what's the motive behind going around and talking to these elected officials? What are you trying to do through these conversations with them? Is it to raise awareness? Is it kind of to keep it on people's radar? Or what's your guys' goal there?
All of that to raise awareness, but also we see victims and survivors every single day. And the thing is, if it's not something that you're currently going through, or, you tend to lose track that this is something that's going on in your community. So the idea is to help them, remember, hey, we have people in our community that might be going through this, and we want to join them. We want to show solidarity with them.
Mm.
So we just try to bring everybody in and say, hey, this is happening, and let's declare that it is Child Abuse Awareness Month and Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It is something we do every year. At this point, it's been many, many years that we've done it, way over 7 years, I think. So
That's an interesting point you just made. You're around people who are in this every day. This is your job. For most of us, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's probably something that, to be honest, many of us would prefer not to think about and kind of want to sweep under the rug. This is a really difficult topic for a lot of people to talk about. When you think about, well, first of all, what is your role with Hope Unlimited? What's your official title?
Child Advocacy Center Coordinator. So I coordinate all the activities for the Child Advocacy Center. I've done several roles at Hope Unlimited. I've been there for 30 years next year. And so I
Wow.
ran the shelter program. I worked with SRS or DCF. We helped victims that were receiving assistance. And then I ran this Child Advocacy Center since 2009.
Wow.
Yep, long time.
What are some of the signs? I guess I think about, maybe I'll step back. When we think about sexual assault and child abuse, I think there are a lot of different ways we think about the problem, the signs, the warning signs. So I guess maybe to just start with how you guys understand child abuse, how, if you had to give a definition or kind of some of the telltale signs of child abuse, what are they for you and for Hope Unlimited in your work?
So child abuse can be many things. It can be neglect. It can be physical abuse. It can be a nutrition neglect, but it also is physical and sexual assault. It's so many things. And to see that happening, I think it's hard if it's your own child that it's happening to. You look for the signs like bedwetting, or if it's I'm just the things that look abnormal. Your kid starts acting differently. Your kid starts telling you something's going on. So you're looking to see, has anything changed? And then, and sometimes it's happening in the home because, most of the time it's happening with somebody that they know. I mean, most of the cases are not strangers. Most of the cases are people that are in their life somehow. The stranger danger concept isn't very likely to happen. It's less likely to happen. So more than 80% of the time, it's somebody that you know. So it's really being aware and open to listening to your child that something is happening, and asking questions and saying, hey, I see that you're not eating. I see that you're struggling, that maybe you're not doing your homework, you're not showering. It's kind of having those conversations and having your kids be open to you to have those conversations, and asking, hey, what's going on? Can you tell me more about that? And then if you find out something's happening, making that report or contacting somebody. and making sure that that's being looked at.
It's scary. I think you know, there's a lot there that makes me think, goodness gracious, the idea that what you're saying, it's more likely to be someone already in my child's life, already in the kid's community, a circle of influence. Yeah, it's not just going to be a random car just driving through. How do you, when you're working with um, kids and with families, that violation of trust has got to be so deep. I'm just wondering, is that even something that you feel like is repairable? I mean, I'm struggling to say this, but I'm just wondering if you've seen families and kids able to move beyond this. I mean, it seems like such a traumatic thing.
I think it comes down to how you respond.
Hmm.
And if you're open and you believe your kids and you believe, that this is going on and you're getting them the help, kids will trust you more. And also, I think that, if you can do all the therapeutic interventions you can and be open to listening to your child, but also getting them into those appropriate therapies, it really helps. And in reality, sometimes what happens is there is abuse going on in the home with child on child abuse, and we have a new program called problematic sexual behavior therapy that we're partnering with the Southeast Kansas Mental Health Center in, and that will help with boundaries and creating boundaries and allowing children to be in the same home. So we're really excited. We just started doing the training on that last week. So we're providing interventions that will help families. We know that it's not easy going through these situations, but we want them to have effective interventions so they can have a whole life, a whole safe life.
Mm-hmm. Your team has got to be super trained. I mean, there's a lot of work that I mean, this isn't just something that you can watch on YouTube and get trained on.
Right. Absolutely. And we're very fortunate that we have the Child Advocacy Centers of Kansas. There are like our parent organization at the state level that provides us free trainings, that provides multidisciplinary team trainings. They also provide, access to, whatever we need at the state level to change laws if laws need to be changed. And so, it's a very streamlined system that we're part of, and we're just proud to be one of many child advocacy centers. So we're excited about that.
When I think about child abuse, I think sometimes the voices of kind of that really, really old school parenting, like of taking out the belt, and using kind of like the corporal punishment, that I think people from several generations ago, just it was like normal, and even I think if you grew up in verbally abusive household, it may not be something that you kind of catch, may just be kind of normalized, right? So I'm wondering how do you know that this is abusive and not just really tough parenting? I mean, where do you kind of I guess in your work, in your experience with families, you've got to be able to call a spade and call it out. But I'm just wondering where those boundaries are for you guys.
So, I mean, every parents typically the way they were parented, and it's it's something that you have to figure out. And I know that DCF provides interventions if physical discipline crosses that line. I think their typical line is if there's bruising that is left. And then words do matter, like if you're yelling at your children, or I mean, it does matter how you build your kids up, but if you're tearing them down, that also is impacting them as well. I think it's conversations. I think it's, even if it's not crossed that line to abuse, it's learning how to parent. Places like Kansas Children's Service League gives parenting programs. Birth to 3 has parenting programs. If that's something you're interested in, changing your parenting lifestyle, you can do that. There is access to some of those.
I remember when my son was born, just being overwhelmed with anxiety over being a parent, and just this whole idea of like, oh my God, I have there, like you're saying, there's no manual that you get,
There's
all of
not.
a sudden, and then to feel the responsibility. It's helpful to know about those resources. I think sometimes too, we talk about a kid being okay if those things aren't there. So if the verbal abuse isn't there, if the physical abuse isn't there, I also think there are things that kids need to thrive, and I'm sure you
Mhm.
feel that. So when you look at a kid and a child growing up, what are some of the things that you find are so essential for kids to thrive, to be able to be their best selves?
A safe person, if nothing else, one safe person in their life that is somebody, whether it's a parent, a foster parent, a guardian, a grandparent, that
Mm,
makes them feel like they have someone to turn to.
mm,
That is the most predictive way how a child is going to thrive.
mhm,
Is there somebody safe they can turn to? And we want, if you don't have a safe person, then who are you going to tell if something's happening? Who
mhm.
are you going to go to when you want to celebrate? You want to have somebody that you can go to for all the good and the bad, whether it's a parent or somebody else. That is what kids need, is somebody safe.
Mm,
And even better is if they have a bigger support system, a
mhm.
family, an extended family. And of course, we're so blessed to have extra people in our lives if we have them. But just know some kids don't have that. And maybe being that person, whether it's through, CASA or Big Brothers, Big Sisters, maybe
Mhm.
being that person to kids that don't have that is so important.
Mm, mm. When you work with many families, and many people in our community really well. What do you see as the big stressors right now in our families and in our community? What do you think a lot of people are really struggling with?
Finances are a big thing right now. I think that gas prices being so high, food being high,
Hmm.
the cost of rent is
Hmm.
very expensive. I think that money is very, very tight right now. And I think that's a big stressor for a lot of people, maybe not being adequately employed. And so, I mean, I know we just had Gates had some layoffs,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
know, anything that's bringing those extra stressors like that. I mean, as far as kids, we're seeing a lot of bullying, things like that. I mean,
Really, you see that? So the stress that parents are feeling, obviously they transmit that to their
mhm,
children. And then you guys start seeing kind of the shrapnel or the secondary
absolutely.
effects of that.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Safe communities, means having enough resources for everybody to live and be
Hmm.
safe and have good housing. And I mean, I think that the stressors I'm seeing are very economic.
Hmm.
But also, if you're already in a very unsafe situation, I mean, it just like doubles that,
Right,
stress.
right.
If you can't leave your situation, like in a domestic violence relationship, if you don't have a job or you don't, I mean, where are you going to go? I mean,
Hmm.
the shelter is a wonderful place to go, but also what happens next? What does your future look like? But if there's just not enough money to leave that situation, you're going to wait until things really fall out, until
Mm,
it's unavoidable.
mm, mm. Okay. I was going to ask you this later, but I'll go to it now because you're talking about it. So this idea, I think I feel like it's pretty ingrained in our society. Um, Somebody's in a situation of domestic violence, sexual assault. Oh, well, they should just get up and leave. They should just move out. Why are you still with him or her? But just this kind of idea that um, we do a lot of victim blaming there. And
Absolutely.
I can't remember, I think it was you told me that if you're in a situation of domestic violence, it takes like 6 or 7
Times.
times for you to really get out and go. I mean, this isn't just, oh, I'm going to pack my bags. And a lot of times my abuser has access to my credit cards.
Mhm.
My car is in his name, or we share the ownership of. Can you just kind of walk me through some of the things that people don't think about when it comes to those types of situations?
There is so many things that keep people from leaving that situation. But also, I think we forget that people are not terrible, 100%. Most of the time, people are very loving and kind, and it's that maybe that 10% of time where it's abusive.
Hmm.
And so I think we forget that there's still love that might be there. And so first you have to be like, this is not a relationship I can stay in. I'm not safe. That 10% is still is so bad. We
It's
have to leave.
dangerous.
It's absolutely. And the most dangerous time is when you leave. And it's very dangerous if you're pregnant. When you're pregnant in a domestic violence relationship, that is a very dangerous time. But also you think about it, if you don't have your birth certificate, if you don't have your social security card, those are things required for housing. And so like maybe they've locked up the documents in the safe and that's not something you have access to. What if you don't have that stuff for your children? So how are you going to get your children in school when you leave? I mean, if they've locked up those documents because they've done taxes or something like that. I mean, if the car is something that's just in the other party's name, are they going to report it stolen when you leave that relationship? If you have the phone plan that you share, what happens when they do the Life 360 and they're following you to wherever you go to be safe? I mean, or are you worried about your parents if you leave and go stay with them? Are they safe? I mean, it's so many factors.
Have you seen all of those cases?
We have seen all of those cases.
Those are real things that happen to real people.
Those are real things that happen to real people.
And I know we're talking now less about children and more about sexual assault and domestic violence here. But I mean, I think people assume that this is an urban problem, that this is not a rural issue. I mean, this is happening right now, right? I mean, I sometimes feel like we treat it as an issue outside of our community.
Absolutely. It's even harder in rural areas because what happens if it's somebody that's very well known in the community? I mean,
and everybody knows everybody.
And here, everybody knows everybody. So what happens when you leave and, and they know what that person looks like out to the community, that they're not the same at home. And then how are you going to be judged when you leave, and where are you going to go? Because they just assume you're part of this couple that has been around forever. We see people that are starting, they leave in their 80s, or they leave in their 70s because they, had it, It really surprises me sometimes, the situations that you see that they wait a while, because they don't feel safe. They don't have enough money. Maybe they'll go stay with their child that's in another city. Finally, that child moves somewhere they can leave and leave their partner. I mean, we've seen all of that.
Yeah. And there are things that we don't see. So I'm thinking too about kind of this normalization of violence against women. And I'm wondering if you can think of or if you can share some ways that there's violence that we may not even see anymore. For example, I'm thinking of, I'm not on X or Twitter, but I remember a couple months ago, Grok had this update where you could just basically create images by, text to image generation. And the amount of fake nudes and just really obscene and defamatory images that just went out into the internet just went through the roof, right? It was just crazy. And then all of a sudden the update goes away and there's a really meek apology from X, but that caused real lasting pain to women. And there was no consequence, right? And what are you going to blame? A bot? A bot is owned by a company that's controlled by the richest person in the world. And so there was just it was just like, it just happened, right? And then all of a sudden these women are left with these photos circulating online of them. AI generated slop. And it's just, so that to me was just one of those examples, right? Where, the world just kind of shrugged its shoulders and moved on to the next scandal of the day. And I'm just wondering if you can think of other ways in which we may not even see violence against women anymore.
Just sometimes the words that we use to describe people, I'm old enough to remember you wouldn't use some description words like, hey, the respect that people have when they talk to each other, I think you're seeing a lot more derogatory language towards women.
Yeah.
And that I have noticed a lot. I mean, I think that the lack of respect in how people talk to each other.
You've seen an increase in that lately?
I see a lot of it, especially in kids at school. You're seeing, hey, and maybe they call them the B word, and you're like, that is so derogatory and disrespectful, but it's just part of how they address each other. But that develops a culture of like how you conversate, like how you talk to each other. So what if, that's just the way it is, but it's not. You're developing a culture, right? I mean, it's very disturbing to see just how words are just tossed around like they don't mean anything, but they do. And if that becomes acceptable, then like how you treat somebody, actions, how you treat somebody also comes into play there. What if, I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios where you can see where women have maybe a little less power, maybe they don't have as much respect in different places. I don't know. I think that it's become so normalized to be disrespectful to women and people in general. Like, it's just like that whole, you're developing that culture of disrespect sometimes.
There's an interesting documentary on Netflix right now, Inside the Manosphere. Have you seen it?
I have seen that.
Okay. I want to get your take on it, because there's a lot there.
There's a lot there.
So I guess just kind of get to the point of it. There's this one-sided monogamy idea, right? That like there's kind of a manosphere influencer on there who basically explains that he's not monogamous, but his wife is, and his wife prefers it to be that way, and that's just hardwired into women's brains. Newsflash but also, I guess, stepping back and looking at this kind of this manosphere that's sprung up in the last, I don't know, it feels like the last year or two. What's your take on that?
There's been a lot of change. You can feel the change and how, and I don't know if it's like podcasts that are like, you see a lot of these very male-centric podcasts where they're trying to encourage big egos and confidence builders and things like that. I don't know if you could attribute it to that, but I know there's some podcasters who've gotten very big, in that world. I'm not sure, but you see that everybody that takes something from, whether it's movies or podcasts or whatever, they take it and they run with it a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I see that. I would almost say there's a lot more people that are just listening to others and using them as guidance that maybe are not the most, positive influences.
Is there danger in this?
I think so, because you are setting a culture of, like I said, disrespect of, thinking one person is better than the other, I just grew up differently. You respected each other. I think we grew up in Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street, and where kindness is key and treating each other well. It's just so different than how I grew up. And I can't imagine being a child in a culture where you have so many influences online, and they are big influences in your life. But I can't imagine being a child being very susceptible to all of those things.
Well, I don't know. I'm a dude, and so I see a lot more in the last year or two men talking about like peptides and this looks maxing thing of like literally breaking the bones in their face, and a super hyper focus on masculine aesthetics. But then like the super misogynistic idea that a woman craves monogamy while a man doesn't. I mean, that to me seems to be like the definition of sexism.
Yes.
And then it's just like, okay, again. I don't know.
It's such a different world than I think I expected. But I
thought we'd be in a better place by now.
Yeah, you know. But I do think that, everybody deserves to have a good world to grow up in. But media is such a powerful force, and you're seeing so many negative. And it's hard, for kids that live online or social media is their world. You're getting, you should be like this or you should be like that,
Yeah.
and if you're not developed fully in your brain until you're 25, you're listening to that,
Yeah.
and
Do you ever think about what's the reason? I mean, I've heard that, a lot of this seems to kind of go back to this intentionally celibate or incel movement where men were so, young men, hyper online population, frustrated with what they perceived as a lack of opportunities, or kind of feeling like they were getting the short end of the stick now. And I wonder, part of that seems to be threatened by women who are attending college more than men now, that are, kind of by these traditional metrics, seem to be taking advantage of some of these leaps that they've made in the last generation. And then men are just kind of like standing by the side. I don't know what you think about if you think there's any water or, any validity to that, or if it's just, maybe I'm reading too much into it all.
So I don't know. I'm not sure. And I have a son and I have a daughter, and I want them to both equally feel like they can have feelings and that they, can talk to me about anything. And so it's really sad. The incel movement confuses me, I think, more than anything else, because I'm like, I guess I don't quite understand it.
Yeah. Does your son, how do you talk to your son about all this stuff?
So we talk a lot because he loves video games. And I know I don't know if you've ever been a gamer, but of course there's a lot of conversation if you're gaming with a group of people. And so, we don't encourage like online unless it's with family. So they're not getting all that influence of, these people, strangers that they don't know. And we talk about words matter, like how you talk about people matters, how you build people up matters, if you're putting people down matters. And I think that try to establish that you respect people, because people are people.
Yeah. Is that what he wants? And he feels like boys and men around him are telling him that he can't have it. Sometimes I feel that way, that like masculinity is always about trying to take a whole person and flatten it into a one-dimensional figure.
Yeah. I mean, I think because he's been so influenced by his mom.
Yeah.
And, both of them have been very influenced by their mom and been exposed to like the world of trying to take care of vulnerable people. I think that it's probably made them better people, and they probably don't look at people as one dimensional. They're looking at all of the aspects of the person. And so I think that's very helpful that they were probably not raised in a household where they had those kind of like beliefs, Yeah.
I'm curious about, so you've been doing this for 30 years. How did you feel called in a specific way for, this is a hard job, yours. And I feel like, I would imagine burnout is probably pretty high, or it can be a constant threat. So I guess I'm curious, first off, how you felt called to do what you do, and then also how you kindle that fire, the passion for your work, and how you don't just burn out and kind of get to a spot where you are just so disgusted with the state of world and the violence and just kind of wash your hands of it.
That is hard. But I also think because I've been flexible in, taking care of myself and then going back to the work, I think taking care of yourself is really important. But having good supports around you, obviously we have a wonderful boss and we have all the people that support us. I don't think we'd ever stay in the jobs if we didn't have, all of our partners. There's just no way you could. But I think I didn't start this job because I started the job because my mother-in-law actually worked at Hope Unlimited in the shelter program.
Really?
And I was going to college. And she was like, hey, we need some extra people to work the shelter. And I was like, sure, because nobody grows up saying that they're going to be an advocate when they
Yeah.
grow up. It's
Yeah.
just not done. It's not like one of those jobs that you see on the job board.
Doctor, lawyer, teacher. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not something that people really are aware of.
Mhm.
And so when I started doing that work, and then I moved into doing works with the kids in shelter and doing projects and we did a lot of art therapy programs and things like that at the shelter. It was really fun. And then just went from there and started being an outreach advocate and running the shelter. And I think of moving jobs a lot, switching around duties has really been helping with. It helps with burnout a lot because you're always exposed to something different.
Yeah.
And it's never the same day twice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that really helps. But also knowing at the end of the day, you're doing good work. You're helping people. You're not doing something for a corporation. You're doing something for the people. It's a very grassroots effort. I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And I think I like what I do. I like the people I see. I like seeing children many years after. I think at this point, I've had some 20-plus-year-olds come in and say they remember me when they were in shelter. And that's the hugs that you get from them, and introducing them to their kids and knowing that their lives are better makes a huge difference. That prevents burnout.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, yeah, I mean, I think it's a job where you've constantly got to your work, and I can't imagine. I think we don't think a lot about I was talking with Charlotte Miller about this similar topic, mental health, and her basic point was you don't really think about your child's mental health until, and of course, her son died by suicide, so it was very, very sad. I can't imagine. But now it's like she has to do something, she has to act on it. Otherwise, it just feels like she's not part of the solution, right?
Absolutely.
And so one of the things I think about with us is what do we need to do? I know you're going around, you're talking to people, and we're raising awareness about this, but can you challenge our community to do something or see something that we're not currently doing? I think about a food drive, and people bring like the cans of food that they don't want. And that doesn't really help, right? It's not
Every
enough.
little bit helps. Every little bit
Yeah,
helps.
but I mean, this idea that we give what we don't want isn't probably enough. And it might help, but maybe not to the level that we really need if we want to move the needle on this. So I guess when you think about big sweeping changes, maybe here in Allen County or Iola or our country, or just what do we need to do? What do we need to start figuring out?
I think first, believing victims and survivors when they come forward and not automatically going to like a victim blaming mindset is very valuable, whether it's adults or kids. I mean, because it can happen to anybody. And in reality, it's an underreported crime. Sexual assault is such an underreported crime, especially for boys and men. They're so much less likely to report them. And so just knowing that can happen to anyone. And if you know somebody who it's happened to, believing them and maybe being part of the solution by connecting them with resources, by saying, I'll go with you. I will help you. I will take you to where you need to go. Whatever you have to do to learn more about it, that makes a big difference. Having us come to your church, having us come to your group, coming in and having a sit down conversation, volunteering, come make those bags that we give to sexual assault victims at the hospital. We put little coloring books and stuff in there to kind of help them pass time. Do something that you would like. Like if it's something that you would like to do, provide that for a survivor or victim. I mean, I think that anything you can do that would help with that healing process is valuable. But getting educated in it is really key. Let us come and talk to you about what it is and what it looks like and what it looks like in your community. Let's talk about it. Not being afraid of conversation and not being afraid to walk through the doors and say, hey, how can I help? I think that makes a big difference, is wanting to be educated about it, but also being the open door to a person that that might be going through it and believing them. That's the biggest thing.
Why is it so easy for us to be in that victim blame? Why is that?
Because I feel like, and this is my personal opinion, I feel like you're distancing yourself because, you know, you don't want to believe it happens. It's like if it didn't happen to them, then it won't happen to me and it won't happen to my family. And it's easier to kind of feel like it will never happen. I mean, I'm doing everything in my power to prevent it from happening, but in reality, it does happen. But it provides that emotional distance.
Yeah.
If it didn't happen to them, then it won't happen to me and it won't happen to my family.
And I'm not implicated either in the solution, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Huh.
And so I think that it just provides you that emotional distance, and I think a lot of people, if it has happened to them, it's easy to want to distance yourself from that too, and not to address that trauma until it kind of comes roaring back in, in triggers. And so then all of a sudden you might need to get some help. And that's where you need to connect with an advocate and say, hey, how can you help me?
Yeah.
And talking to an advocate, and then we put you on the path where we have a therapist that is with us, 1 day a week, and then we can help create that pathway to the mental health center. We have free therapy that we provide through the mental health center through a grant. I mean, connect. We want to connect everybody together so we can have healthier families, healthier lives.
Yeah, because you at Hope Unlimited, it sounds like you work very closely with CASA, with the mental health center. Who else are some of the?
So at the Child Advocacy Center, we actually have a multidisciplinary team. So on that team is law enforcement, the prosecution, the mental health center, the DCF, Department of Children and Families. CASA will come and join us for specific cases. So we partner up. So when a child comes through our doors and they have to get a forensic interview, everybody is there and they only have to do one interview. And they don't have to go talk to law enforcement. They don't have to go talk to the DCF. They don't have to go to the prosecutor. They just have to have that one interview done in that child-friendly center. And then after that, we meet together once a month and talk about these cases. What are you doing? How are we helping? Is there any way we can help them pay their utility bill if they had to leave a family home because of the situation? How can we help as a collective to address that so people have better results and better outcomes and better healing in the long run?
I wanted to ask you about the shelter. I know that there's been a campaign to build a new shelter. And so I just kind of wanted to ask how that's going. And then too, I think we've talked about this before, but what kind of resources are available at the shelter? What is the shelter's job, or when you think about its mission, and then kind of what are the constraints by the current space that need to be, or that would be remedied by a new shelter there?
So we're still doing our capital campaign for building our new shelter, which we're excited about because it will quadruple our space. At this moment, people have to share rooms. We try to prevent that from happening, but COVID was a big aha moment. People don't really need to be sharing spaces. It's all about being healthy and also privacy. Smartphones have introduced people taking pictures and recording each other and things like that. So having new space, having adequate space for everybody to have their own space.
So the shelter's full.
The shelter's full. Yes.
Always full.
Almost 100% of the time.
How big of a service area is Hope Unlimited serving?
We serve Allen, Anderson, Neosho, and Woodson counties, but in reality, sometimes our shelter, proximity-wise, is closer to other areas. Wilson County frequently brings, we have people that come from Wilson County because it's closer here than it is to where the other place, maybe they have a job here closer, maybe in Chanute, so it's closer for them to actually be here.
And there's very good reasons why we don't see the shelter as full. But I think that's just, to me, a really stark reminder. This isn't just, we sweep it under the rug. I need to understand every day that shelter is full.
Shelter is full every day.
It's something you think about every day, but I think, there are people in these types of situations every single day.
And in reality, you want to make people comfortable. You want to make sure they feel safe. They feel like their safety is number one priority for us. And in reality, when you're in a house situation like we are, it's just like you're putting 4 families, 5 families in a house situation. So having a shelter that is all one floor and handicap accessible, quadruple the space. Everybody has their own rooms. They have a way to warm up a baby bottle if they want to warm up a baby bottle. You know, they have a way to access their diabetic medication because they have a little fridge. I mean, the whole idea is to make things safer, to make things, you know, just as you would want them in your home. They deserve to have that kind of access.
Yeah, we're not going to build people up so that they can get out of these situations if the shelter space is, you know, if it's not designed for you guys to provide the services. Because a lot of times the shelter, the first point of contact with Hope Unlimited, you know, do you have people who show up and you know, you don't know anything else about them?
Absolutely. A lot of times their first point of contact is that person on the phone. They call and say, hey, I need help. And that first point of contact is usually our intake specialist, Lindsay. And she's like, okay, how can I help? And she goes through some questions to see, is there enough space? How many beds do we need? Do we need to find, are they in our service area? And they can still come if they're not in our service area, or did they call us because they seen the phone number and didn't realize, oh, you're 100 miles away from me. I really need the one that's in my backyard. So she's kind of navigating that process with them to make sure they're getting into shelter if they would like shelter, or maybe they're not ready for shelter. And so she can help them with resources or connect them with an outreach advocate. So, you know, that first point of contact is so important. People need to feel encouraged. They need to feel like even if they aren't ready to leave today, that we're going to still be there if they want to leave tomorrow or in a month from now. But every time they're talking to us, we're giving them some resources and some tools. We want to be welcoming.
And that number is available. I mean, you're day or night. You're
24/7. Absolutely.
30 years.
30 years.
Can you think of some cases where you feel like somebody came into your world through Hope Unlimited and they left, and you were just, you know, maybe years later, but it just was a success story? Do any people, does a face or a name kind of, and I don't need to know the name, I'm just curious if you can think of a couple stories that you think, oh my gosh, I didn't think it could happen, and it did.
We had a lady from Chanute, and she actually did give us permission to talk about her case because she wants good training. She wants us to be able to utilize her case. She was actually a victim of her husband by the roadside in Neosho County, and he had taken a baseball bat and had beaten her up very severely. And when we got to the hospital, she was not recognizable as a person. And when you showed up and you seen how badly she was beaten, and all of a sudden a voice comes from that little lump in the blanket, and she was like, are you gonna take care of me? And we're like, we're here until you get out of the hospital, and then we're going to the shelter. And she was so grateful because she was like, you know what? I mean, I couldn't go home. I mean, I was not safe to go home. And going through that court process and him going to prison, and even talking to her 20 years later, and she's living in a safe place. She finally is able to connect back with her kids. She's finally being able to be a grandma that she always wanted to be, because that person in her life was keeping her isolated from her family. And she was in shelter for a while because she had lots of legal things that she had to take care of, like court for this situation. And then when she left, she came back and volunteered at the shelter.
Wow.
And she was like, my whole heart is right here. My whole heart is in the shelter because I know exactly where they're coming from. And finally, she was able to move closer to her grandkids and still calls us at least twice a year, sends us Christmas cards. And I will never forget her because she's a reminder of how you can make an impact. Yeah. She kept coming back and saying, how can I help? And she's like, I don't have any money, but I'll come back and I'll sort through the food for you, or I'll sort through the clothing. I'll get some clothes together for a victim that's in shelter. I'll put together some outfits. And I mean, she was like our grandma, like our token grandma at the end of it. And she still, I talked to her a couple months ago, and she still believes in the mission. She believes in helping even after going through that situation. It was incredible to see like the full circle moment when she was like, I'm here for you guys. It's just such a cool story. I will have to, sometime when you come in our office, I'll have to show you the pictures she's allowed us to show.
Oh, that is powerful. Donita, thank you so much. That's a great way to close, just to think about the power of the work that you and your team do. So thank you very, very much for all you're doing this month, but every single month, every single day. We need to be recognizing you guys because you're doing such critical work for our community. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having us. I know you guys are busy, so we appreciate the time.